Welcome to the Manager Matt podcast show. The show is designed to give you solutions to your day-to-day management and leadership problems. It's hosted by Matthew Haddock, a frontline manager and leader with over 25 years of experience. If you're ready, then let's get on with the show.
Hi and welcome to the Manager Matt podcast show. This show is here to give you help with practical tips and advice which will improve your management skills and get you the results you've always wanted. Make sure, if you haven't already, subscribe to the show so you'll never miss an episode and share it with anyone you think might benefit. Well, without any more delay, let's get on with this week's show. Well, welcome to this week's show. This week I want to talk about a principle that I heard about making decisions and the right amount of information you need before you make those calls. And of course, let's always think, as managers, we are going to have to make decisions. They may be small, they may be big, but decisions are needed wherever you work, because if not, well, what are you there? And of course, when you think of decisions, people have a very, very wide spectrum. You know, when it comes to making decisions that can be really small, then obviously you don't need a lot of information. You can make those decisions almost on the fly with the knowledge and information that you've gathered over the years. And sometimes, you know, we have to make sure that we are driven to make the big calls in your organisation. So if you're a manager, make sure that you're not making every call for everyone. And you know that there is some people that are on this sort of spectrum when it comes to making decisions. You've got the people who are the wait and see people, if you like. They always seem to be procrastinating about what to do next. You know, should we aim, but never, ever seem to fire. Then there's the people who shoot from the hip. No info, just gut feeling, those kind of people. Fire him. You know, I mean, it's not saying one of them's bad, it's not saying one of them's good, it's just saying people have different approaches. So when it comes to it, what is the right amount of data? What do you really need to make sure that you are seizing the day, getting the action you need and delivering the results? And there's always difficult situations and different time constraints when it comes to decisions. You know, when you're in those live examples, you're driving along in your car, you know, you're doing the speed limit, obviously, and somebody pulls out on you, then there's an automatic process that you brake. It's milliseconds of a decision. You don't even think of it as a decision. It doesn't matter, you know, if you were in there, you are on the brakes and you've done it. You know, that's those kind of decisions you make on the hoof. And those are very much inbred survival instincts. You know, when you make that call, you're not really thinking about it. You know, you're thinking this is the way it is, this is the way you should do it. But in business, obviously, there's going to be more time to consider it. You're not normally making the knee-jerk reaction that I've just spoke around. If we take a good example, and I think this is an interesting point that Colin Powell makes. Now, he's the former US Secretary of State. And he had a particular approach when it came to making quick decisions or the correct decisions. And he called it the 40-70 rule. Now, obviously, remember, the numbers are wrong. Don't think of it as a percentage, you know, 40-70. He strives to make sure that he made a decision. He would never make a decision, if he had less than 40% of the information he needed. Then ultimately, he would not wait until he got 70% of the information. So that's where this idea of 40-70 comes from. Now, I don't know if you know much about Colin Powell, but he was a military man, he had a military background, and he could explain that when you're in a situation in the military, so usually in a battle situation, you never could get every single piece of information that you need because you just didn't have it on a battlefront. It was moving, it was too fluid, changing all the time. And if you waited too long, you'd have obviously missed the opportunity to capture or to do what you needed to do in a military sense. And it's a good concept for business as well. You don't want to have less than 40% of the information, but you can't wait for it all. You can also argue that you'll never get all the information, even in a business sense. You know, take some HR investigation or disruption or dispute between people. You'll never, ever get to exactly what was said, where and when. You can take all the statements you like, but there's always going to be some information missing. Do you never make a decision on that? Well, of course you do. Of course you make the decision. In a business situation, you need to make sure that you're being right. So say it's a quality issue. I would recommend that you wait to the higher end of 70%. If you've got the information around quality, you don't want to make a call too early. But if it's a fast-moving, short shelf product, then can you wait that long? Can you wait for every single piece of information? Or will the boat have sailed or the product have gone off? So you'll have missed it. It needs to be a disciplined approach in leadership. In the big decisions, you need to make sure that those big decisions with big consequences, you can get that 70% approach in most cases. But some decisions, you're going to be making that 40%. What's for tea? Doesn't need a body of evidence or a huge debate around it. And in business, there's going to be those smaller ones that you can get 40% and particularly get them right. Either way, whatever approach you take, you need to make the decision as a leader. Managers who won't last that long. It's so frustrating if you have a leader who will not make a call. They're always waiting for that next thing or giving you another thing to look at. You should take advice and counsel and speak to your team, of course, but assess the facts. Do you have 40% of where you are? Are you at 70%? You must make that call at some point. You can change your mind. Remember that as well. In most situations in business, you're going to be able to change your mind when more information comes in, and it isn't the end of the world in that case. You're not a politician, because for some reason politicians can't make the mind. Can't change the mind. I'm not sure why. There's always going to be wrong times. I've had situations where I felt I had 99% of the information, made the call, and in hindsight got it wrong. But of course, hindsight managers are the most successful, but the least employed in business, aren't they? But I can stand up and I know that I can make a call with the information I have in hand. And I would stand by that call, even looking backwards, because I made the decision at the time with the amount of information I had. That's a difference there. If you think of it that way, I've made the decision with all the available information I had at the time. That doesn't mean that the call was right or wrong. It meant that you used the information to make the call at the right time. So what are the takeaways from this short cast today? Well, make decisions. It's your job. It's a basic one. I think I mentioned it a few times. If you're talking about the 70-40 or the 40-70 principle, you need to get information at 40%. And you need to make sure that you trust that 40% as a minimum. Another takeaway, don't try and get over 70%. You're going to go into that aim, and never fire. Remember, the manager that doesn't make a decision is a manager who is not employed for long. Be confident and strong enough to change your mind if you get information that makes it possible that you were wrong. Well, thanks for listening. And as always, I'm really keen to hear your feedback on the show. So if you can and you're willing, please send us your feedback, as it's a gift, to managermattpodcast@gmail.com. I answer all my emails and would love to engage on new and old topics. And remember, one thing before we leave, make sure you put into action what you learnt, because you get nothing for doing nothing. Right, well, that's it for Manager Matt this week. Thanks for listening, and goodbye.
Thank you so much for listening to this Manager Matt podcast. We hope you found it interesting, helpful and actionable. One last thing, please leave a quick review on iTunes or with your podcast provider, as it helps to spread the word of Manager Matt. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to the podcast, and if you did like anything in particular, send an email to managermattpodcast@gmail.com or visit managermatt.co.uk for more content. Feedback is a gift, so let's keep giving. See you next week.